The room smelled faintly of old leather and burning wood from the fireplace. Mr. Harrington, the family solicitor, adjusted his glasses and unfolded a thick letter with trembling hands. I sat stiffly in the creaking chair, my fingers twisting nervously on my lap. Beside me, William shifted impatiently. He had always been the golden boy, father's favorite, the natural heir to everything. I, Hannah Bennett, was merely 15 years old, still considered a child by everyone except my father. Mr. Harrington cleared his throat. By the will of Edward Bennett, all properties, finances and possessions are hereby left solely to Hannah Bennett. The words fell like thunder. For a moment, I could hear nothing but the crackling of the fire. William shot to his feet. This is madness. She is just a child. His voice was filled with rage, his fists clenched at his sides. Mr. Harrington remained unmoved. It is your father's final decision. I wanted to speak, to protest, but my throat closed up. I never wanted the estate. I only wanted to understand why. William's glare was sharp enough to cut glass. I knew then that things between us had changed forever. As the tension thickened, Mr. Harrington handed me a smaller envelope, sealed with dark red wax. Your father left this for you alone, Miss Bennett. My fingers trembled as I accepted it. William made a move as if to snatch it away, but Mr. Harrington's firm hand stopped him. This is for Hannah only, he said quietly. William stormed out, the heavy door slamming shut behind him. The noise echoed through the solemn office. I stared at the envelope, my heart pounding. Something told me that this letter would change everything I thought I knew about my family. And I was right. I waited until nightfall to open the letter. My room, high in the east wing, was cold and silent. The only light came from the dying embers in the fireplace. With careful fingers, I broke the wax seal. Inside was not a letter, but a small folded piece of parchment. A map. Hand-drawn, delicate, and full of strange markings. At the top, in my father's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "Trust no one. Follow the path before your birthday." My birthday was only 3 weeks away. My heart raced as I traced the route marked in red. It began at the old greenhouse, wound through the abandoned orchard, and ended deep in the forest behind the estate. Why would my father leave me a map? What could possibly be hidden there? I tucked the parchment into my journal and lay back on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. Sleep did not come easily. The next morning, I slipped out before breakfast. The house was quiet. William nowhere to be seen. I crossed the frost-laden garden, my breath forming pale clouds in the air. The old greenhouse stood in silence, its glass panels cracked and smeared with dirt. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten things. Moss crawled over broken flower pots. Ivy hung like curtains from the beams. In the center, half buried under dead leaves, I found a stone slab. Just as the map had shown. My hands trembled as I cleared the debris. Etched into the stone was a single word. Begin. A sound behind me made me freeze. Footsteps. I spun around, heart pounding. But there was no one there. Only the shifting shadows. Was someone following me? Or was it just the house playing tricks on my mind? I glanced once more at the map. The next point was the orchard. Drawing a deep breath, I stepped out into the cold morning, my every sense alert. Whatever secrets my father had hidden, I was determined to uncover them. No matter the cost. The orchard was once the pride of our estate. Rows upon rows of apple trees, pear trees, and cherry trees that would burst into color every spring. But now, it was nothing more than a graveyard of twisted branches and rotting trunks. The mist hung low, curling around the gnarled roots like pale fingers. The ground was soft beneath my boots, and every step felt like sinking deeper into a forgotten world. I moved cautiously, glancing down at the map every few minutes. The next marker was near the heart of the orchard, by an ancient oak tree that had stood for longer than anyone could remember. It was said that the tree was cursed. That anyone who carved their name into its bark would be lost to the woods forever. Of course, those were just old stories. Or so I had always believed. When I reached the tree, I saw something strange. A thin line of white stones forming a circle around its base. They looked freshly placed, clean against the muddy ground. At the center of the stones, something glittered. I knelt, brushing aside dead leaves. There, half buried, was a small silver key. Tiny and delicate, it shimmered in the gray light. I picked it up, feeling a jolt run through my hand. Cold. Sharp. Almost alive. Tied to the key was a strip of faded cloth. Written on it, in the same hand as the map, were the words, "The first door is not what it seems." The first door? A shiver crept down my spine. I tucked the key carefully into my coat pocket and stood, scanning the orchard. The mist thickened, twisting into shapes that looked almost human. I could hear whispers, faint and distant, as if the very air was speaking. I told myself it was just the wind. But deep down, I knew better. Suddenly, movement caught my eye. Between the trees, a figure. Dark, hunched, moving silently through the mist. I ducked behind a fallen tree, heart hammering against my ribs. The figure paused, sniffing the air like a hound searching for a scent. Then, without warning, it turned and vanished into the mist. I waited, barely breathing, until I was sure it was gone. Only then did I dare to move. According to the map, the next part of the journey would take me to the Weeping Well. A place even older than the orchard itself. A place of legends and sorrow. Gathering my courage, I set off, my hand never straying far from the silver key in my pocket. I had begun a path I could not turn away from now. And something told me that what I would find next would change everything. The path to the well was narrow and overgrown, hidden by brambles and vines that snagged at my clothes as I pushed through. The mist was thinner here, but the air was heavier, almost pressing against my skin. I could hear the sound of water before I saw it. A slow, steady dripping, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The Weeping Well sat in a hollow, surrounded by ancient stones covered in moss. Its mouth was wide and dark, like an open wound in the ground. No birds sang here. No insects buzzed. Only the constant drip, drip, drip of unseen waters. I approached slowly, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I could not. I knelt at the edge, peering into the blackness. The surface of the water was so still it looked like glass. My reflection stared back at me, pale and ghost-like. Then something moved. Not me. Not the mist. Something below the surface. A ripple, faint but real. I leaned closer, squinting into the darkness. Words formed on the water, glowing faintly like moonlight on a winter night. One key. One choice. One chance. The silver key in my pocket grew warm, almost burning against my skin. I sat back, heart pounding. What choice? What chance? The map had said nothing about this. I pulled it out again, smoothing the worn paper. There, near the symbol of the well, were tiny letters I had missed before. Barely visible even now. Listen to the well. Trust what is unseen. Trust what is unseen? A branch snapped behind me. I spun around, but saw nothing. Only trees swaying in a breeze I could not feel. My nerves were stretched to breaking. I turned back to the well. I had to do something. Carefully, I took the silver key from my pocket and held it over the well. The air grew colder. The ground seemed to tremble. Then from the darkness below, a soft whisper rose up, curling around me like smoke. I could not understand the words, but they filled me with a deep, aching sorrow. Without fully knowing why, I lowered the key into the well. It hovered above the water, suspended by some unseen force. The reflection shimmered, and for a heartbeat, I saw not myself, but another face staring back at me. A girl, around my age, with hollow eyes and a desperate expression. She mouthed a single word. Run. The key snapped downward, disappearing into the blackness. The ground shook harder now, and a low rumbling grew beneath my feet. Something was waking. I stumbled back, heart thudding, as cracks spiderwebbed across the stones around the well. From the largest crack, a thin mist began to pour out, swirling faster and faster. And from within that mist, I heard the sound of footsteps. Heavy. Purposeful. Coming closer. I had no time to think. Gripping the map tightly, I turned and ran, leaving the well behind as the world around me began to shift and change. Trees twisted into shapes I did not recognize. The path ahead was no longer familiar. But there was no choice now. I had to keep moving. Because whatever had awakened in the well was now hunting me. And it would not stop. The trees closed in around me as I ran, their twisted branches clawing at the sky like desperate hands. The mist thickened once more, curling along the ground and swallowing my footsteps. I could barely see a few feet ahead, but I did not dare stop. Behind me, the heavy, relentless sound of pursuit echoed through the forest. Closer. Louder. The map flapped wildly in my hand as I stumbled forward, heart pounding in my ears. Then I saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them. Glowing faintly from the shadows between the trees. They did not blink. They did not move. They simply watched. I slowed, my breath catching in my throat. The footsteps behind me faded, replaced by an oppressive silence. I turned in a slow circle, trying to see if there was a path forward. The trees were so close together now that the trail had disappeared. Only the eyes remained, watching, waiting. I gripped the map tighter. There had to be a way through. I remembered the words from the well. Trust what is unseen. But how could I trust anything here? A low hum filled the air, a vibration I could feel in my bones. The eyes blinked in unison, once, twice, and then a narrow path opened between two ancient oaks. It was not there before. It should not have been there at all. Yet it beckoned, a sliver of space in the oppressive forest. I hesitated only for a second. Then I ran. The path twisted and turned, always just barely wide enough for me to pass. Strange, thorny vines brushed against my arms, leaving thin, burning scratches on my skin. The eyes followed. I could feel them, 1,000 silent witnesses to my flight. I dared not look back. Somewhere ahead, the mist began to glow with a faint bluish light. I pushed myself harder, lungs burning, until I burst into a clearing. The light came from a circle of stones, ancient and crumbling, with a single tree standing at its center. Its bark was white as bone, and its leaves shimmered with an otherworldly glow. At the base of the tree, half buried in the earth, was another key. Not silver, but black. It pulsed gently, as if alive. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body screaming caution. The black key looked nothing like the first. Where the silver key had felt warm and familiar, this one radiated a coldness that seeped into my bones. As my fingers closed around it, the ground trembled once more. From the shadows beyond the clearing, something moved. Not the watchers. Something else. Something worse. A deep, rumbling growl rolled through the mist. The watchers blinked again, and this time, they stepped back into the darkness, abandoning me. Whatever was coming was enough to scare even them. I had no time. Clutching the black key, I turned and ran again, following a narrow path that led out of the clearing. The growl followed, growing louder. Closer. The trees blurred past me. The mist thickened, turning into walls that closed in from every side. But up ahead I saw it. A structure. Half buried by time and vines. A doorway carved into the earth. The entrance to the catacombs. And my only chance to survive. The entrance loomed before me, a jagged maw carved into the hillside, framed by ancient stones etched with symbols I could not read. The air that spilled from within was colder than the mist, carrying with it the heavy scent of damp earth and something far older. Behind me, the growl grew louder. I had no choice. Clutching both keys in my hand, I crossed the threshold into the darkness. The world outside was swallowed instantly, the mist and trees vanishing as if they had never existed. I found myself in a narrow tunnel, walls of rough stone pressing close on either side. My footsteps echoed, lonely and hollow. The tunnel sloped downwards, deeper into the earth. I moved quickly, driven by the instinct to put as much distance as possible between myself and whatever prowled the forest. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel opened into a chamber. Torches lined the walls, their flames flickering with a ghostly blue light. The floor was covered in a mosaic, cracked and worn with age, depicting a tree with 2 keys crossed beneath its roots. At the far end of the room stood a door. It was massive, made of dark iron, and covered in the same strange symbols as the entrance above. In its center were 2 keyholes, one silver, one black. My heart pounded. This was it. I approached carefully, every step echoing loudly in the vast silence. As I neared the door, I noticed the ground was littered with bones. Small ones. Large ones. Whatever this door protected, many had tried and failed to reach it. My hand trembled as I slid the silver key into the first lock. It fit perfectly. I turned it. A deep rumble vibrated through the stones. Then I took the black key and pushed it into the second lock. The moment it clicked into place, the torches flared violently. The door shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Slowly, painfully, the iron door began to swing inward, revealing a darkness deeper than anything I had ever seen. I hesitated at the threshold. A breath of air, cold and dry, rushed past me from the darkness beyond, carrying whispers in a language I could not understand. Something ancient had just awakened. I stepped inside. The chamber beyond was enormous, so vast that the edges were lost to the shadows. In the center stood a pedestal, and upon it, a book. The book was bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed with age. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. I approached slowly, each step a battle against the overwhelming sense of wrongness that filled the room. When I reached the pedestal, I realized the book was chained down with thick iron links. An inscription was carved into the stone base. To know is to be bound. To seek is to be claimed. A chill ran down my spine. Before I could decide what to do, the ground trembled again. A voice, deep and ancient, filled the air. You have come too far, child. I spun around, but saw nothing. The shadows moved. Shifted. From the darkness, a figure emerged. Tall, robed in black, its face hidden beneath a hood. It moved without sound, gliding across the stone floor. You seek what should not be found, the voice intoned. You awaken what should remain asleep. I stepped back instinctively, bumping into the pedestal. The figure raised a hand. The chains around the book rattled violently. The room darkened further, the torches sputtering. You must choose, the figure said. Take the knowledge and be bound forever. Leave now and forget all you have seen. The book pulsed again, more urgently. My heart raced. The path I had followed, the trials I had endured, all led to this moment. But at what cost? The shadows closed in, pressing against me from all sides. I had only seconds to decide. Time seemed to freeze. My hand hovered over the book, the faint pulse from its surface matching the frantic beat of my heart. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me, pleading, warning, promising. The robed figure stood still, a silent sentinel of the darkness. If I left, I would abandon everything I had fought for. All the answers, all the mysteries, would remain forever locked away. If I stayed and took the book, I would be forever changed. The words of the inscription echoed in my mind. To know is to be bound. To seek is to be claimed. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision press down on me. Then, with a breath that felt like a farewell, I reached out and touched the book. The chains exploded into dust. The pedestal cracked. The room shook violently. The book snapped open of its own will, pages fluttering wildly as if caught in a storm. Words in a language older than time blazed across the air, searing into my mind, branding themselves onto my very soul. I stumbled back, gasping. Pain. Memory. Power. All of it surged into me, filling every corner of my being with knowledge I could barely comprehend. The robed figure raised its hands, and the shadows coiled tighter. You have chosen, it said. You are now bound. The room dissolved into blackness. I was falling. Spiraling through endless night, through visions of worlds not my own, lives I had never lived, horrors and wonders that defied reason. When the falling stopped, I found myself standing once more in the clearing of the forest. But it was not the same. The trees were twisted, their branches clawing at the sky. The mist had thickened, becoming a heavy, choking fog. The stars overhead burned a strange, blood-red color. And the village, where once there had been lights and laughter, now there was only silence and ruin. Broken houses. Empty streets. Shadows flitting between shattered windows. I stumbled forward, the book still clutched to my chest. As I moved, the whispers continued in my ears, but now they spoke clearly. They spoke of the truth. The village had not been real. The people, the laughter, the life I had known. All illusions, a trap to lure the key-bearer. Me. And I had taken the bait. I had freed something ancient, something terrible, trapped long ago beneath the earth. The world around me had already begun to change. A faint hum filled the air, a vibration deep in the bones of the land. From the center of the ruined village, the ground had split open. A black spire rose from the depths, jagged and alive, pulsing with the same sickly light that now filled the sky. And from its peak, something watched me. I could not see it fully, not yet, but I could feel its gaze, colder than death, heavier than time. I sank to my knees, clutching the book tighter. This was what I had unleashed. Not just the end of my village. Not just the end of my world. But something far, far worse. The whispers around me rose in a mournful wail. The shadows lengthened. And the figure from the chamber stood once again before me, its hood still hiding its face. "You are ours now," it said. 1,000 hands, made of mist and sorrow, reached out from the darkness, wrapping around my limbs, pulling me slowly toward the waiting spire. I struggled, but it was useless. The knowledge bound me more surely than any chain. As I was drawn closer to the heart of the darkness, one final thought cut through the despair. There had to be a way to fight back. Even if it meant becoming something else. Something the darkness had not foreseen. I clenched my fists, the book burning against my chest. The battle was not over yet. It had only just begun. The hands of mist tightened around me. My breath came in short, ragged gasps as I fought against the invisible pull. Every instinct screamed at me to surrender, to let the darkness claim what it had sought for centuries. But deep within the whirlwind of fear, something stirred. Something older than the village, older than the book itself. A spark. A memory not my own. A voice rose from the depths of my mind, calm and commanding, cutting through the storm. "You are not merely a vessel. You are the air." I gritted my teeth, feeling the burning heat of the book against my chest. With a roar that tore from my very soul, I tore myself free from the grasp of the shadows. The ground trembled. The sky split open. From the sundered heavens, a blinding shaft of pure, silver light descended, striking the earth before me. The shadows recoiled, screeching in fury. The robed figure staggered back, its hidden face turned upward in terror. From the light, a form began to emerge. Not a creature of flesh and bone, but a being woven of starlight and ancient power. It towered above me, its presence a balm against the choking gloom. It knelt before me, its voice a song of eternity. "You have freed me. Together, we shall restore the balance." I reached out, my fingers brushing the shimmering surface of the being. In that instant, a river of knowledge and strength flooded into me. I saw what the village had been. A prison, a seal. I saw the darkness, not merely an evil, but a hunger, a void left unchecked. And I saw my role, not as a victim, but as a guardian. The shadows roared in defiance, swirling into a monstrous form above the black spire. Eyes countless and shifting, opened within its seething mass, each one burning with hatred. It struck. A spear of blackness lanced toward me, faster than thought. But I was faster. The light within me blazed outward, forming a shield of shimmering silver. The impact shook the earth, sending shockwaves rippling through the ruined land. I staggered but held firm. The being of starlight stood beside me, its form growing ever brighter. Together, we advanced toward the spire. The ground cracked and bled shadow beneath our feet, but we pressed on. The whispers turned to screams. The black spire writhed as if alive, tendrils of darkness lashing out desperately. At its summit, the source of the corruption waited, a heart of pure night, pulsing, shuddering, alive. I could feel its hatred, its fear. It had not expected resistance. It had not expected me. With a cry that split the heavens, I raised the book high above my head. The pages flared open, each rune burning with white fire. The book sang, a song of endings and beginnings. The being of light joined its voice to the song, and the ground itself answered. The spire cracked, great fissures racing up its sides. The heart of darkness thrashed violently, sending gouts of black mist into the air. But it was too late. The light would not be denied. With one final shattering chorus, the book unleashed its power. The light swept over the land like a tidal wave, washing away the shadows, cleansing the broken earth, silencing the endless screams. The spire exploded into dust. The heart of darkness let out a final, anguished wail before it was consumed, torn apart and scattered to the winds. Silence fell. The stars above resumed their rightful place, shining cold and clear. The twisted trees straightened, the air grew sweet once more. And the village, what remained of it, began to heal. I stood alone, the book now silent in my hands. The being of starlight placed a hand upon my shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and farewell. "You have done well, Hana," it said. "But your journey is only beginning." With that, it rose into the heavens, becoming one with the stars once more. I watched until the last glimmer of its light faded into the endless sky. A soft breeze stirred my hair. I turned and began to walk, the book held gently at my side. I did not know where the path would lead. But for the first time I was not afraid. The world had changed. And so had I.